Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I want to talk today about a individual you probably have never heard of. He is the Stasi Spymaster Markus Wolf. He was the number 2 in charge of the Stasi throughout the Cold War, and he was so elusive that the West didn't even know what he looked like. His identity wasn't revealed until almost the 80s, and it was a different country's intelligence service that revealed it. So I want to talk about him though, because many people don't know that he was hired and brought in to consult uh, on DHS, the Department of Homeland Security that we have today. He was also brought in to the highest echelons of the FBI to teach the FBI. And so you need to understand a little bit about Marcus, the man without a face. So let me read to you a little bit about Marcus. I have a couple things I'm going to be reading from here and just adding my commentary on. I think that one of the important things to cover about this man is that he was never held accountable for any of the things that he did, for none of his crimes. He basically got away with it, and I think that that's wrong. So I'm going to be reading here from an article about him, calling him, one of the architects of the New World Order who basically has gotten away with his crimes. There has never been so little written or so little information provided about one of the most diabolical, mentally sick, and disturbing members of the human race as former East German Stasi chief and founder Markus Wolf, who literally embodied the word evil in everything that he did or said during the decades of his acts of cruelty against not only his own people, but the rest of the world. That was like his entire life. That's what his life was dedicated to. Even more disturbingly, this man, if you can call him that, pretty much got away scot-free with his crimes against humanity. And he was even hired by the fledgling DHS in 2003 to recreate and add the final finishing touches on this anti-freedom government agency that I would say is unconstitutional, that was created in the wake of 9/11. The Stasi that Markus Wolf helped to create and lead plunged Germany into state-sanctioned violence, tyranny, oppression, denial of things like basic civil rights and human rights. The citizens of East Germany had no liberties. They didn't have any freedom. And he otherwise spied on and surveilled the entire population, essentially at the behest of the oligarchs and the plutocrats, who were really the ones that were backing him and who were clinging to power in the face of a growing populist awareness. There was kind of like a revolt growing amongst the masses. Indeed, Markus Wolf was, by his own admission, a deviant, if you know what that means, what kind of deviant, and a bully, similar to his own mentor and protege, who was the former secret police chief for Stalin. And he did horrible things to little girls as young as 12 years old that I am not going to discuss here in this piece, but it was very disturbing. And he often incorporated both of these parts of his personality in his grip of control over each and every aspect of his captive East German population, as well as on foreigners who dared to get involved with his daily trampling on the human rights of the people that he was ordered to corral and control on behalf of his paymasters. Indeed, while Markus Wolf publicly espoused the values of things like austerity and living frugally, the things that communists always say, but it's always for everybody else and not them, This is to brainwash the people that they rule over like despots. And privately, they're all engaging in, they're having orgies. They're eating and drinking the finest foods and wines from other countries. They're using their power and their money to indulge in these things. They basically operate sort of like a mafia state. His entire life and career within the East German Stasi is a warning to the American people who could easily come under and fall prey to the ever increasing and encroaching power of the U.S. police state being assembled and formed under their very own eyes, unless the people wake up and understand what's going on and learn to study history. They are essentially trying to recreate this agency, the Stasi within the United States. Markus Wolf was born to a Jewish father and a non-Jewish mother. On January 19th, 1923, he was the founder-in-chief of the main Directorate for Reconnaissance, the Foreign Intelligence Division of East German Ministries for State Security. He was the number 2 for 34 years, spanning the Cold War. It is said Markus was totally ruthless, and he exploited any person's weakness with great precision and a total and utter lack of compassion. And that he often said that, quote, no one who touched his intelligence service would be forgotten, and no debt would ever be canceled. Markus ran the East German Security Service for most of the Cold War and was accused of countless acts of kidnapping, coercion, causing bodily harm, amongst other myriad war crimes against humanity over the several decades that he was the Stasi chief. His father was a member of the Communist Party of Germany, and after a certain individual rose to power, Wolf and his family had to escape. They had to flee, so they escaped to Soviet Communist Moscow with his father via Switzerland and France because of the communist connections they had and their beliefs. In 1953, at the age of 30, Wolf was among the founding members of the East German Foreign Intelligence Service within the Ministry for State Security. He attended elite Soviet schools in Moscow, by the way. As intelligence chief, he achieved great success in penetrating the government, political, and business circles of West Germany with spies, predominantly using his targets' deviant appetites, penchant for vices, susceptibility to bribery, and if that didn't work, then they'd take off the velvet glove and bring out the iron fist, and that was things like intimidation, physical violence, blackmail, extortion, to get the targets to do what he wanted. For most of his career, he was known as the man without a face, quote unquote, due to his elusiveness. But this was also because of the major oligarchs who actively protected his identity. And those are people who you don't know about their identity, just like you probably haven't heard of Markus. It was reported that Western agencies didn't know what he looked like until 1978, when he was photographed by Säpo, Sweden's National Security Service, during a visit to Sweden. And that was, by the way, immediately splashed in the news just out of spite. They let it be known that they had identified him finally, which I think was a little silly. Wolf Stasi was an Orwellian police state using disturbing methods and murky operations. His Stasi carried out widespread repression of its own people through a network of tens of thousands of informers and quote-unquote gang stalkers using Zersetzung program. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, just like I'm not going to say Stasi and Wolf, like we're not going to do the German pronunciations. Your girl is from South Florida, okay? But Zersetzung means chemical decomposition or biodegradation, and it is targeted psychological degradation. His Stasi also routinely harbored international T's, such as Carlos the Jackal, and They also harbored the Red Army faction that terrorized West Germany, as well as the PLO. Through Markus Wolf, the PLO was actually trained in hidden camps in East Germany in weapons, explosives, and guerrilla tactics. In September of 1990, shortly before German reunification, Wolf fled the country and sought political asylum in Russia and Austria. When he was denied entry, he returned to Germany, where he was arrested by the reunited German police for crimes against humanity. He claimed that he had turned down like a financial lucrative offer from the CIA if he spilled secrets and defected to the United States, which he didn't do. In 1993, he was convicted of treason in a kind of like a show trial that was just put on to appease people. And then he was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment, and then that was immediately quashed by the German Supreme Court, and they said that they were quashing it because Wolf was, quote, acting from the territory of the then independent GDR. In 1997, he was convicted of unlawful detention, coercion, and bodily harm, and given a, quote, suspended sentence of 2 years imprisonment, which of course is a joke. There was an article written, and we're going to read just a little quote from that, called "Why Former Stasi is Treated with Kid Gloves," and it kind of explains why there was no accountability. Quote, "Many former Stasi members are still in public office in Germany today. In fact, they're on the offensive when it comes to victims looking for recognition. Former Stasi officers include former guards of Angela Merkel. In 2009, it was revealed that approximately 70,000 current employees of the German government used to work for the Stasi. The GDR Secret Service has been partly responsible for over 200,000 political prisoners and about 1,000 deaths of East Germans who tried to flee the GDR. Another explanation for the mild treatment of former Stasi after the fall of the wall is that it concerned 91,000 Germans and hundreds of thousands of, quote, informal collaborators, informants essentially, who betrayed their friends, family, and neighbors to the Secret Service. This is the gang stalking, Zersetzung. If all of these people lost their positions, it would have led to major turmoil and dissatisfaction within German society. Victims of the GDR regime have difficulty stomaching the fact that former Stasi staff are still treated with kid gloves. For example, names of Stasi officers have been removed from public archives. In fact, parts of these archives are no longer freely accessible because of lawsuits filed by former Stasi members appealing to their privacy. Oh, they get the right to privacy, but none of their victims did. Many associates of the past Secret Service have managed to have references to their past removed from books and exhibitions, unquote. Markus Wolf died in his sleep at his Berlin home November 9, 2006, rather than in a jail cell or by firing squad like many of his victims, probably numbering in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, during his lifetime and by his own hands. Now, I want to just explain to people a little bit more about Zersetzung and what it is. It was the goal was to kind of destroy the confidence of people, and they would do weird things. So it means chemical decomposition or also biodegradation. So meaning if you just disappear somebody in the middle of the night, which of course they did do, but sometimes if that person was dissenting or whatever, or if it just wasn't convenient for them, they had other ways of neutralizing them that was less obvious. They would do things like damage their reputation. So they would do smear campaigns. They would have gossip and rumors. It's sort of like fake news, what we call fake news today. They were doing this back then, but they would also do things like they would organize failures in their work. So they would arrange for you to like not get a promotion so that you would be stuck stagnant in your career and you wouldn't be able to afford to do anything. They would sort of just destroy your life in these I guess you could call it passive aggressive ways, in ways that you couldn't see. You didn't know that this outside force was working against you and arranging for these things to happen. They would go into your home at times. They would move something around or move a few things around, rearrange things, but not take anything. So if you then tried to, explain to somebody, hey, I think somebody broke into my house, well, they go, well, did they take anything? Is anything missing? No, but things were rearranged. So it sounds crazy. Like, do you expect people to believe that someone broke into your house to rearrange your furniture and then just left? It sounds crazy. And the goal was to discredit them by making them seem crazy like that. They would do things also like destroying relationships, breaking up marriages, things like this. And they knew that this was going on at the time. The East Germans knew that there was this network of informers and things of that nature. There is actually, I believe, a website of the same name that explains what it is. And there's, so you can find some good information on it there. It's called Zersetzung.org. So I highly recommend that. Also, Markus Wolf, after he retired, he had his own successor. He was the protege of Stalin's police chief. He had his own protege, Werner Grossman, who ran just as damaging operations, and he just passed away in 2022, 2 years ago. So there's probably a replacement now that is just as bad, but he helped to recruit 1,500 West German spies during the Cold War. And again, keep in mind that Wolf was brought in to consult on the founding of DHS. Not just him, but KGB General Yevgeny Primakov was also hired to consult. Allegedly. And keep in mind, too, that Putin was foreign intelligence for the KGB, and that when the Berlin Wall fell, Putin was destroying papers. He was destroying files, and we know from the archives that his Stasi ID has come out. So he worked with Stasi networks back then, and the Stasi is still around today. At one point, I believe, the height of their power, the Stasi had 1 in 6 people in East Germany acting as informants, which is an astounding number. And I just ask people to try to visualize that. Now, there is a Time magazine article from 2006 I want to bring up real quick, and we're going to wrap this up, but it's called The Faceless Man Who Perfected Sex and Spying. Very, very relevant to today. This is from the November 2006, the day after he passed away. He never repented, never saw the need to. Markus Wolf was so clever a spymaster that the fact he worked for East Germany, a repugnant regime that rightly disappeared into history's dustbin, never dented the massive ego that drove his success. I would disagree with them there. No, they didn't disappear. Many of them went into the so-called reunified German government. The Stasi still operates out of Berlin. These old intelligence networks are still in place. A lot of them were not outed. So no. When he died Thursday at 83, quietly in his Berlin apartment on the 17th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, Wolf thought himself a victim of Victor's justice that had denied him the esteem he deserved, and he took countless secrets to his grave. Known as the man without a face, for many years, Western agencies didn't have a photo of him. Wolf was a son of a German Jewish doctor and playwright, a communist who fled and ended up in Moscow. He attended elite party schools in the Soviet Union and was trained for undercover work. He returned to Germany as a journalist covering the Nuremberg trials, suspicious, and joined the East German Spy Service at its inception. In 1952, because of his Stalinism, he convinced Russian leaders of his loyalty He became its chief and was brilliant at his job. Now, let's see. Wolf's foreign intelligence section of the Stasi, he claimed not to be involved in organs of domestic repression. That wasn't true. Ran as many as 4,000 agents at the time. They penetrated the top ranks of business, government, parliament, military, and intelligence services in West Germany and beyond. Wolf had developed a particularly effective line in Romeo spies. So running these Romeo operations, handsome men who would befriend lonely secretaries that were working for senior officials and spymasters. Immensely patient, he would carefully help direct his plans to jobs where they could be increasingly valuable. One Romeo spy worked her way after a very long career into the office of the German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. Wolf mused in retirement that, quote, if I go down in espionage history, it may well be for perfecting the use of sex and spying, unquote, which is just crazy. Now, also crazy, he had said, even as my bitter foes would acknowledge, his agency was, quote, probably the most efficient and effective such service on the European continent. I would tend to agree with him, even though, you know, he's bragging. I believe he was telling the truth, and I think that more people need to be aware of this. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to bring up was this article here from the Idaho Observer from February of 2005. Ex-Stasi, quote, expert consult with U.S. on Homeland Security. Is it true that an organization is a reflection of the people in it? If you were a benevolent president and wanted to keep your people safe, would you hire men who spent decades improving their ability to harm their own people? What kind of homeland security advice can we expect from the former director of the East German Secret Police? It was reported last December former East German Secret Police Director Markus Wolf was being considered for the top post at the U.S. DHS. The rumor caused such a stir that the Bush administration chose Third Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Michael Chertoff to replace the outgoing Tom Ridge as director. Wolf was, at one time, considered by DHS to be a T. Wolf, who'd been consulting with the department, is expected to continue in his capacity as a consultant for the federal agency charged with keeping Americans safe. Under the dictatorship of Wolf, the Stasi was one of the most ruthless police forces ever assembled. According to Wikipedia, in 1953, at the age of 30, Wolf was among the founding members of the Foreign Intelligence Service within the Ministry of East German Stasi. As intelligence chief, Wolf achieved great success penetrating the government, political, and business circles of West Germany with spies. The most influential case was that of Gunther Guilhem that led to the fall of Chancellor Willy Brandt. Wolf retired in 1986. As a reference, Wikipedia cites the book Memoirs of a Spymaster. Chertoff is credited with being instrumental in drafting the Patriot Act. Considered a classic Rockefeller Republican, Chertoff is not opposed to certain types of torture being used during interrogation of detainees. Yes, that's correct. Chertoff is a protege of Irving and William Kristol, neocons that were pushing the ever-expanding wars that never end, that are still ongoing even today. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have, all I wanted to share with you guys. I just wanted you to be aware of Markus Wolf if you weren't already. And I wanted you guys to know that he was brought in to consult in DHS and also he was brought in to, I believe, train FBI agents, which would explain a lot. Anyways, I'm interested to know what you guys think. How much do you know about the Stasi, their repression tactics? Zersetzung, have you heard of Markus Wolf before? Did you know anything about him? And have you studied any of this stuff? Anyways, That's it for today. Have a good day, guys. Whee!